You have been paying it for years. The monthly rent, the yearly increase, the unexpected fee, the waiting list that seems to move nowhere. And you have probably asked yourself the same questions. Why is hangar rent so expensive? Why does the landlord treat me like a problem? Why does the airport authority seem to ignore what is happening? The answer is straightforward. Hangar operators are taking advantage of their position. Not every one of them, but enough are. They are exploiting monopolies. They are taking advantage of federal grant assurances. They are working alongside airport authorities, and they are extracting as much money from pilots as they possibly can. In many cases, they are getting away with it. I'm going to show you how the system works and what pilots can do to fight back. Let's begin with the evidence. At Centennial Airport in Denver, the Jet Center FBO increased monthly hangar rent from $660 to $1,200. That represents an 82% increase. In 2021, the same hangar reportedly cost only $500. The FBO did not provide a detailed explanation. Instead, it said the rates needed to be brought into line with prevailing market prices. The tenants did not accept that explanation. They organized. They filed a Part 13 complaint with the FAA. They created an association and raised money to cover legal expenses. The FAA is investigating, and the dispute has moved into court. The tenants argue that the increase violates federal grant assurances requiring fees to be fair and reasonable. The FBO argues that it is exempt because it is also a tenant. But the tenants see the situation differently. They believe the FBO has control over the hangars, fuel, and airport access, leaving pilots with little meaningful competition. And Denver is not an isolated case. At North Las Vegas Airport, pilots have accused the Clark County Department of Aviation of forcing smaller operators out by refusing to renew hangar leases. One pilot operated a flight training business for 8 years before losing his lease. Another pilot described his disputes with the county as increasingly confrontational. The county disputes those allegations and says it is developing a new policy with the assistance of a consultant. County officials also say hangar owners have participated in the process. But critics believe the policy is ultimately being used to remove smaller operators and replace them with larger tenants and more profitable corporate facilities. In their view, the problem is not limited to FBOs. Airport authorities can also play a major role in determining who gets access to scarce hangar space. Now think about your own airport. Have you experienced a sudden rent increase? Have you been denied a lease renewal? Have you spent years on a waiting list without getting anywhere? Tell me about it. Because similar disputes are appearing in different parts of the country. In Pittsfield, Massachusetts, for example, a local businessman with a Citation jet received a hangar lease while a general aviation pilot who had reportedly been waiting for years was denied. The process was criticized for lacking transparency, and there was no formal waiting list. The airport commission approved the lease for the jet owner, while the GA pilot remained without a hangar. One commissioner who had personally been waiting for a hangar for 13 years recused himself from the decision. To critics, the entire process demonstrated how easily hangar allocation can become a matter of connections and influence rather than transparent rules. Here is how the system can work. Step 1 is the monopoly. An airport authority grants an exclusive lease to an FBO. That FBO ends up controlling the available hangars, fuel, and other services. With little or no competition, the operator has significant power over pricing. The airport authority may also receive a portion of the revenue. That creates a potential conflict of interest. If the airport benefits financially from the FBO's revenue, it may have less incentive to challenge aggressive price increases. Profit-sharing arrangements can therefore create a disincentive for airport sponsors to oppose excessive FBO rates. Instead of protecting the pilot, the airport may have a financial reason to tolerate higher prices. Step 2 is the issue of federal grant assurances. When an airport accepts federal funding, it agrees to comply with certain requirements. Those requirements include providing access and ensuring that fees are fair and reasonable. Operators are expected to follow the applicable rules and avoid discriminatory practices. Yet some FBOs argue that they are not subject to the same requirements because of the structure of their leases. When disputes arise, pilots can turn to the FAA, but federal investigations can take time. The result is that pilots may continue paying disputed fees while waiting for the government to determine whether the airport or FBO violated the applicable requirements. Step 3 is the special event fee. Some FBOs add additional charges during holidays, conventions, trade shows, or major local events. At Aspen, one pilot reportedly received a $598 charge on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. The bill included a $25 habitat fee, a $150 security fee, and a $365 ramp fee that could be waived with a fuel purchase. In Las Vegas, pilots have reported additional charges associated with events such as the Formula One race, the Consumer Electronics Show, and World of Concrete. The pilots themselves may not be attending any of these events, but they can still face additional airport-related charges. Critics argue that these fees effectively make ordinary general aviation operations more expensive whenever a major event takes place. Step 4 is the tie-down and ramp fee bait and switch. An FBO may advertise one price for piston aircraft and a much higher charge for turboprops. A pilot arrives expecting a relatively modest fee and is then billed at the higher rate. The charge may be described as a handling or parking fee. In one reported case, a turboprop pilot was charged $409, while the piston rate was only $45. The huge difference raises questions about how these fees are calculated and whether the charges are proportionate to the actual service being provided. Step 5 is the leaseback structure. An airport authority leases land to a company at a relatively low rate. That company can then sublease or otherwise make the property available to another operator at a significantly higher price. The airport authority may still benefit financially, while the ultimate user pays substantially more. A reported example from the Philippines illustrates the potential scale of such a markup. At NAIA, a government corporation leased approximately 20,000 square meters at 20 centavos per square meter and then subleased the property to Cebu Pacific at 314 pesos per square meter. The markup was reportedly more than 1,500 times the original rate. The underlying lease had not been modified since 1974. Cases like this demonstrate how dramatically the economics of airport property can change between the original lease and the final user. Now consider the cost of construction. FBOs frequently argue that higher hangar rents are necessary because construction has become dramatically more expensive. A 25,000 square foot hangar that once cost approximately $100 to $125 per square foot may now cost more than $200 per square foot. That is a legitimate increase in construction costs. But pilots question how much of that increase is actually being passed through to tenants and how much is being used as justification for broader price increases. Tenants can end up paying for upgrades they never requested, services they rarely use, and improvements that primarily benefit the operator. AOPA has been challenging these types of practices. The organization has pushed for greater transparency and more reasonable pricing and has supported complaints involving airport and FBO practices. But AOPA cannot intervene in every dispute at every airport. Individual pilots and tenant groups often have to organize themselves. That is exactly what happened in Denver. Tenants formed an association, raised money, filed a complaint, and pursued legal action. Collective action gives pilots considerably more leverage than trying to fight an airport or FBO individually. AOPA has also warned about the broader implications for general aviation. If federal rules are not enforced effectively, increasing airport privatization and consolidation could make it harder for smaller operators and individual pilots to remain in the system. FBOs could continue increasing fees. Airports could continue benefiting from those revenues. And pilots could gradually find themselves priced out of airports they once considered accessible. So what should you do if you are a hangar tenant? First, understand your rights. If the airport receives federal funding, it is subject to federal grant assurances. Fees are expected to be fair and reasonable, and airport access cannot simply be restricted arbitrarily. If you believe the charges or practices at your airport violate those requirements, document everything. Keep copies of your lease, invoices, notices, emails, and fee schedules. If necessary, file a Part 13 complaint with the FAA. Contact your AOPA regional representative. Contact the airport authority. and talk to other tenants. A group of pilots working together can have considerably more influence than a single tenant acting alone. If you are searching for hangar space, do not automatically accept the first offer you receive. Compare airports, compare FBOs, examine the lease carefully, ask about annual increases, ask about parking charges, ask about fuel requirements, ask about special event fees, ask about security charges and other additional costs. Understand exactly what you are paying for before signing anything. Do not assume that an attractive base rent means the total cost will be attractive. Hidden charges can dramatically change the final number. The same applies to fuel discounts. A discount may come with conditions or additional fees that make the actual savings much smaller than they appear. If you are an airport authority, you also have responsibilities. Federal grant assurances are not optional suggestions. If an FBO is operating on federally funded airport property, the airport sponsor has a responsibility to ensure that applicable requirements are respected. That includes fair access, reasonable fees, and non-discriminatory treatment. Ignoring violations can create problems not only for the FBO, but also for the airport authority itself. And now think about the future. The hangar shortage is not disappearing. Construction costs remain high. Demand for aircraft storage remains strong. Airport property is limited. When supply is restricted and demand is high, prices naturally rise. But that does not mean every increase is automatically justified. It means pilots need transparency and fair competition. The only effective response is organization. Individual pilots have limited leverage. Organized tenant groups can negotiate. They can gather evidence. They can hire legal counsel. They can file complaints. They can bring attention to unfair practices. The Denver tenants demonstrated exactly how this can work. The clock is moving. Hangar rents are increasing. Waiting lists are getting longer. Airport space is becoming more valuable. And operators who control scarce space have more leverage than ever. If you are a hangar tenant, do not simply accept every increase without question. Read your lease, understand the rules, document changes, compare prices, talk to other tenants. If necessary, challenge the fees through the appropriate channels. If you're looking for a hangar, research the airport before signing. Ask about every possible charge. Understand the lease terms. Find out how rent increases are calculated. Determine whether there are special event fees, handling requirements, fuel minimums, or other conditions. And if you are part of an airport authority, remember that your role is not simply to maximize revenue. Airports are public infrastructure, and federally funded airports have obligations to the aviation community. Fair access and reasonable pricing are essential to maintaining a healthy general aviation environment. The hangar crisis is real. The financial pressure on pilots is real. But not every FBO or airport authority is corrupt, and not every rent increase is automatically illegal or unreasonable. The important issue is transparency, accountability, and enforcement. Pilots should not have to choose between paying unreasonable fees and giving up access to their aircraft. Hangar space is essential infrastructure for general aviation. The system works best when airports, FBOs, and pilots all understand their responsibilities. If you believe you are being treated unfairly, do not remain silent. Document the problem, learn the rules, organize with other pilots, contact the appropriate authorities, use the legal and regulatory processes available to you. The people controlling the hangars have leverage because the space is scarce. Pilots can create leverage of their own through information, organization, and collective action. The rent may keep rising. The waiting lists may keep growing. The competition for hangar space may become even more intense. But you are not powerless. Know your rights, know your lease, know your costs, know the rules. And if something does not look right, challenge it.